What's going on, y'all? Sean McClendon here from Math Swap Tutoring, and I want to talk a little bit about whether or not you should take the SAT if the college that you are applying to makes it optional. Now, you probably already knew that I was going to say yes, you should, but let me explain why. So, around or during the pandemic, a lot of colleges started to, that was around the time that we were quarantining and whatnot. There was no digital SAT around that time, um, at least not on a wide scale, and therefore the SAT was made optional. Okay, at least for a lot of schools, and there were actually a variety of what they call test optional policies that schools adopted during that time. Since the pandemic has definitely kind of like become a non-issue. Now a lot of schools actually adopted, um, kind of like brought a requirement for the test back, but some schools didn't. Now, so let me explain the different test optional policies that schools have. First of all, you have test optional for all, which means all applicants can decide whether or not they submit their test scores. Okay, so that means, in other words, it's not really um, required for admission, but you can submit it if you want to. Second test optional policy is test optional for some. So that means um, only certain people have to submit their scores, and that certain people essentially means people whose um, their GPA and other different kind of admission requirements meet a minimum standard. And so if their GPA and all that meets a minimum standard, then they can actually not have to submit their test scores. But if your GPA or whatever is below a certain threshold, then you would have to submit your SAT score. Then you have what's called test flexible, which means you can submit your scores for other tests. So, like for example, if you took certain AP exams or whatnot, you can submit those instead of your SAT score. Okay. Then you have what's called test blind, which means the school, whether you decide to submit or not, the school's not going to look at your score at all. It's not going to so it doesn't really matter whether you take the SAT or not. It's not considered at all. Okay. And so that's a school where it's just not, it doesn't make any sense for you to submit your score. Then finally, you have a combination of test optional and test blind, which means it's a combination. So essentially, it's up to you whether or not you submit your score. Schools won't look at it, but at the same time, schools actually do kind of require it for you to be enrolled. And usually, what happens here is just because maybe the school uses it for its own internal purposes, like research and whatnot. Maybe they still want to kind of like, kind of see what kind of students are coming into their school, and they want to use that information to kind of like, determine what their admissions requirements will be in the future, something like that. I don't know. So that said, obviously it's important for you or your child, if you're going to send this, if you are a parent and you're going to send this to your child, it's important for your child to know what the schools that they're applying to require. So you need to do your own research. You need to look and see what the admissions requirements are, and they're going to tell you what the admissions requirements are for their particular program, their particular admissions. Okay. So do your own research. Now, let me tell you why, even in all of this, you should still take the SAT and submit your scores. It is because your SAT can be a part of for one, a powerful admissions package that will distinguish your child from other students who are applying to whatever school. Think about this. The school your child is applying to is probably going to have at least hundreds of other applicants, if not thousands, especially if you go into like a big state school. Okay, you may have thousands of other applicants, and your child making a good SAT score would be something to distinguish him or her from every other applicant. Okay, so think about that. You want to have as attractive of a application package as possible. The other thing is, and this is a huge one, your child's SAT score may be required still for financial aid packages. And the financial aid I'm talking about is merit based. So, and this is what happened with me when I went to undergrad. So, my undergrad, my application allowed me to get a significant amount of scholarships from the school to cover, most of my tuition. So like even if you don't necessarily have to submit your score for admission to the school, your SAT score could mean the difference between you getting no scholarship money and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarship money. Okay. So, again, in that sense, you need to submit your SAT score because your college will need to see it to determine whether or not they're going to give you financial aid. Now, again, you may get admitted, but like for financial aid, you need to apply. And then also, this could also be something to qualify you for not just um, scholarship money from the school, but other scholarships where they look at your SAT score. Case in point, there is a scholarship here in my state called Zell Miller, which it requires your SAT score. It has a minimum threshold for an SAT score. That they'll if you meet that threshold and you meet the GPA threshold as well, they will pay for if you go to a public school, they'll pay for all of your tuition, and they'll pay for a portion of your tuition if you go to a private school here in my state of Georgia. Okay, so that said, the test may be optional, but you still need to take it because it can help you to separate yourself from other applicants, and because it can mean lots and lots of money in scholarships from your school and even from outside of your school. Okay. So, all of that said, if you are not preparing for the SAT to maximize your score, then you're doing yourself a great disservice. And I'm doing a series of free SAT workshops linked in the description where I talk about strategies that your child can use to get at least a 600 on the math, because the math is usually the section that most people struggle with. But I'm going to give you strategies how your child can make at least a 600 or higher on the SAT math section. So you don't want to miss that. Okay. So make sure you use that link below to, to find out more about that. Okay. All right, y'all. Hopefully this has been helpful. Make sure that you subscribe, like, share, and also that you have a great day.